It's been a little bit since we talked about this larger high tunnel. I was walking past there last night working on our air prune boxes out on the far end there, and I thought, oh, it'd be nice to pop into here. We're coming into a cold time, and so I'm doing some deep hydration of some new seedlings, thinking about getting the poly cover inside this space buttoned down and looking a little bit at this compost heating system that we've set up this year. So I thought I would take folks for a little wander on that if you're interested. I realize there's a whole lot of different aspects that have evolved in here since the last update. One thing, I think it's worth a place to start, because that's still wintry out here, is to see some green things, and they are working. I think with the space in here functioning properly, with the poly closed up in the evenings and ventilated during the day, it's helping the cooler crops sprout very quickly. This is all a mustard ruby streaks. It's old seed, but it came up. I thought it was going to come up really weak because it was older seed, but we've got this beautiful band way oversown. So with a lot of this, we'll be lifting these seedlings. We'll lift little bands of them and transplant them out to the garden when things get a little bit more mellow. But this is an obscenely overcast mustard little vein there, but we'll address that a little later. In here, underneath our low tunnel, so I think in the last video I talked about this, where we have a solar panel, sorry for the wild video swing in there, attached directly to a DC fan, which is attached to a tube that goes down in the earth under my feet here, all the way down to the other side, and releases back underneath that tank. And so anytime the sun is out, it's capturing excess heat and putting it in the walkway, and it feels like it's capturing a fair bit and stabilizing it quite nicely, and germination is working really well. It's a little weedy, but that's fine because most of the weeds are actually food, so we'll tolerate them until they're too big and then eat them. But some things that are going on in here, we've got some little bands in here. Our friend was over, oh boy, I'd have to look back at the video, a couple weeks ago, and she helped make these furrows in the soil and fill just the places where we were sowing with a nice quality lightweight organic seed starting mix. We use McEnroe Light, and it seems pretty nice. And so in here we've got some fresh seed from this season of a leek variety. We're letting that grow nicely. We'll pluck the different weeds in here as needed, but a lot of these are wild mustard, so we'll wait till they're a little bigger and then pluck them, rinse them, and eat them. Right, so like there's some nice colorful mustards, there's some lettuces. A lot of the weeds are things we want. There's a fair bit of seed in here that's older. We've got lettuces from 5 years, 10 years ago, and so we just used all the seed. We'll see how it goes, but we wanted to use up some old packets. So that's from 2020. So far, no germination. If we don't see any in the next week or so, we'll just scratch everything out and start again. But right now in this bed, it's mainly onions popping up, but there's also some nursery things. We've got skirret seed and some perennial scallions. At the far end of the bed, we have, tucked in and amongst all these other plants that have overwintered, so this really nice parsley we've been enjoying and harvesting from. The lettuces are starting to perk back up, and then in between we've got our annuals and perennial nursery starts that will be transplanted out. So this is all a storage onion, New York early. Then Good King Henry is for the nursery. It's a very sporadic germinator, so we've got this in here. None have come up yet. And then some more onions. We want to get those started early so they have a good chance. We'll let them size up a lot and then move them out to the field later on. And then we're working with volunteers that are beneficial. We had anise hyssop in here 2 years ago, and the seeds dropped in. And so we're just letting all those little seedlings form. They're not in the way right now. And we'll let them develop a bit, and we'll wait till things warm up outside. And so this is a little de facto nursery bed, a carpet of hundreds of little anise hyssops that we can move out to a garden outside in the spring. So we're not very rigid, quite clearly, about here's a perennial bed, here's an annual bed, this is for seed starting, everything in here must get zeroed out because seeds are in it. We kind of blend and work. We can always tease things out or eat our way through a problem. You can see some hydration techniques in play here right now, all the water in the walkway. We have a walkway that is packed soil that equalizes the water slowly down to this end. I had the hose here for a while, and so it hydrated the walkway. You might ask yourself, what the heck is the point of hydrating a walkway when you've got plants in the beds? Well, if we can soak the walkway, it will plume water deep into the soil underneath these beds. So I just surface watered these beds, and they are set to greens that we plan to eat in the bed. So there's a mix of different varietals of kale. There are some spinaches coming up. There's a bunch of lettuces, red Russian kale. We'll eat directly out of here and then transplant some. And so watering from the top, that helps the germination happen. Watering through the walkway allows for deep plume of hydration that can move up. And as we get into the next handful of days, we're going to see some pretty cold weather. I want to get the soil extremely well hydrated. It feels like that helps young seedlings experience less shock than when they're water stressed. And we're trialing a very simple curtain for warmth accumulation in here this year. So you can see germination is coming up pretty nice in here, weedy stuff aside. But again, the weeds that are coming up are all food, so I'm not going to complain. But all this is a scrap piece of poly with binder clips that hold it up. And if I let that one go, you can see the sheet falls down here. And then if I come down this way, I just have one or two clips. Basically, I'm clipping them up only if it's really sunny and warm out, or if I need to have access to water. But otherwise, I'm just leaving this down. And very, very simple way to get a little microclimate boom. Very inexpensive, very straightforward. So we've got a little tunnel back in here. It's not sealed off, so it won't overheat on a sunny day, but I think it'll give a nice buffer on the coldest nights from radiative losses. Speaking of heat losses, now that I've watered in this space, I want to tuck this bed away for the evening because I definitely don't want the coldness of the night to affect all those little seedlings under there. What's nice is with that fan running, when it gets real hot and sunny by day, the fan is automatically, if it's sunny enough to make it really hot in here, then the fan is driven by the solar panel proportionally enough to siphon that excess heat and put it down in the earth below and ultimately over to that tank. So it kind of evens out. And then the coldest nights, I can take the poly and spread it over the walkway, which has absorbed heat by day. So then the radiative, or the heat radiating out of that banked heated soil, can be caught within the space and help keep the edge off. I think another week or so, and we should be in a place where we can have warm weather starts in here and not be too worried about them freezing. We just recently inherited these vents that almost fit the door properly. I'm going to try to set those up over the next few days with a wax piston in order to help the doors vent themselves. Last but not least, I wanted to do a little description of this corner compost heating system. Our friends helped out again another week or 10 days ago. I'll look that up and put it on the screen. But they basically helped us clear out bedding from the chicken coop that needed to come out anyway. So really nitrified, nutrified, high heat, high energy hay and chicken litter mixed with wood chips, and then eventually transitioning to charcoal towards the top, wood chips towards the top to act as a filter, allows this whole thing to create a fair bit of warmth and no aroma really. And then we've put these stones on top, so as it radiates heat during the day, it can charge up the stones, and then if we have seedling flats that we want to get bottom heat in order to germinate quickly, so tomatoes or tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, things like that, they can go in this space in and amongst the rocks. We can put poly over it. That's what these clips are for the evenings if needed. But we basically have a radiative bottom heat system. You can see how much life is going on in there. So underneath the burlap, I mean, that's very, very toasty. I should have a thermometer. Maybe I'll do a proper video where I talk about this in greater detail. Maybe you can see the steam coming out, but I would guess that's around 85 or 90 degrees Fahrenheit right there. So not enough that if it was like a brutally freezing 0-degree night with tons of wind, that tomatoes would be fine. But for dealing with a waste material that has to come out of the chicken yard anyway, having charcoal and wood chips that'll become soil anyway, stones and bricks that are laying around as thermal heat sinks and batteries anyway, and old burlap sacks as lids. You can see it's extra warm where we've laid the burlap. The cost is right for making this, and I suspect that all of that latent heat coming off, even though it's not directly working on flats that are in that space, it's contributing to both carbon dioxide to help fuel plant growth and some good ambient humidity and warmth in here. That's what I got for now as far as what is happening in this space. Let me know what you got for questions or ideas. Next time I come out, I'll bring the thermal camera and some temperature probes and see what's going on. I think we'll top dress this compost heater with one more fresh layer of bedding that will provide some really good fresh heat right before we do our high value spring starts of warm loving annuals, the tomatoes, the peppers, and the like. And we'll share notes on how this thing goes in. We have the wax pistons that will articulate it when it gets hot. I just have to think through the logistics because it doesn't quite fit those, but we'll make it work. Anyway, that's our update. We've got seedlings started, we've got compost pumping out some heat, we've got some low tunnels providing double protection. So with the high tunnel and the low tunnel and the compost heating and the air moving through, we're getting to a pretty stable place that's not actually consuming a lot of energy or resources. It's all salvaged plastic that we're using in here. This little curtain seems to be really helpful for the cooler weather crops. We'll just see how it all unfolds. Do things overheat? Do they cook? Do they dry? Do they freeze anyway when we get a cold snap? We'll share that as it goes. But that's our update for now. Thanks for watching.
There's some people.